All right. Yes, I agree to let this be recorded. Okay. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. And happy to have you here on a Friday with my friend, Nancy Ross. We have worked together in developing online courses in the past. And, you know, it's been a lot of fun to get to know her. And I esteem her as one of the, if not the greatest online teachers here at Dixie State University. And so we have a lot to learn from her. And I'm grateful that she's agreed to this training. So just really quick about me, I started my career as an elementary school teacher and taught fifth graders for nearly a decade. And then interestingly enough, Nancy's daughter was in my class once. So we also have that connection there. And then eventually made the switch over to higher education. And so I've been at Dixie State for about 3 years now and really enjoying my time here. But I've brought that passion for connecting with students and making learning personable and having relationships, you know, even through online education. That's been really a focus of mine. So I'm grateful to share some of the things that I've learned through my experience and through my study and research. And hopefully it will be helpful to you as well. So Nancy, would you like to briefly introduce yourself while I load up the presentation?
Sure. I think I'm finishing my 14th year here at DSU. I've been an adjunct to 3/4 time. I was half an administrator a few years ago, and I am in the interdisciplinary arts and sciences department now. And a few years ago, I decided that I wanted to learn to be a better online teacher. About 10 years ago, I had an experience teaching online and I felt it was a disaster and I didn't necessarily have tools for success. And I was like, we're never going to do that again. But I figured that if I learned to do it well, then maybe that would be a different way that I could organize my life and my work that might teach me some new skills in the process. So I'm going to hand the time over to Ethan now.
Perfect. Thank you, Nancy. All right, so just real quick, what we're doing today, the main thing we're focusing on here is like the tools and strategies. That's where the bulk of our time will be. And I'll share more in depth on tools and a few ideas for strategies. And then Nancy will go into more depth of different strategies and approaches that she takes, that she's seen a lot of success with students. We'll then take questions at the end, and feel free to ask questions, by the way, throughout. If you'd like, through the chat, or if you want to unmute, that's fine by me too. I'm happy to answer questions if they're urgent or pertinent to the discussion. So, and then before we start, as an instructional designer, I just can't do a presentation without talking about outcomes. So the outcome of what we're trying to get at here today is to help you guys build community and rapport with online students by implementing best practices that increase teaching and social presence. And this contributes to one of our goals here at DSU Online, which is to improve the overall online course experience for all of our students. So that's really what we're getting at here today. Okay, to begin, I want to take the pulse by asking a few questions. I'm going to activate this poll, and if you'll just take a moment to reply to these. Oops, that's the wrong one. That's the exit poll. Let me try selecting the right one and launching that. Okay. So have you been enrolled as a student in an online college course before? It's something we were curious about. How many years have you taught online, if any? And if you teach online, how would you describe your level of community and rapport with online students currently? So go ahead and take a moment to respond to that. This is all anonymous, so feel free to answer as honestly as possible. Real quick, are you, after you answer the poll, are you seeing the results, or is that just me that's able to see the results?
Just you.
Okay.
I can see them.
I'm not
Perfect.
seeing anything.
Then I will share those with you. Okay, so currently right now, those of you who've responded, 88% of you have been an online student in a college course before, which seems very high, and 13% have not. Only 2 of you have not taught online before. 44% have taught 1 or 2 years, and about a quarter, 3 to 5 years, 1 person 6 to 9 years, and then 2 of you 10 or more. So that's great. We have a pretty good variety, it sounds like. And then out of the answer choices provided. Very good is what half of you have selected for current level of community and rapport with online students, which is awesome. So I'm glad to hear that most of you are already feeling good about that. A few of you marked fair, a few poor, and one marked exceptional. So this is great, and we hope to be able to take your experience and connect to that and show you maybe some other ideas and features that you may or may not have tried before, and see if that can achieve our intended outcome of improving building community and rapport in online learning. Okay, so just real quick, I want to give a brief overview of why this matters, kind of a theoretical background. In the online learning world, a seminal work by Garrison, Anderson, and Archer in 2000 was called the Community of Inquiry Framework. There's a triple Venn diagram on the screen that you can see that sort of summarizes this paper. And in essence, it says that you have different presences in an online course. The cognitive is the content, the academic, critical thinking, problem solving side. The social is between students interacting with each other. And the teaching presence is how the students perceive the teacher to be in the course. As you know, online learning has distance, not only in time, but in location. And so even though there is that distance, there's still a way that we can use strategies to make teachers feel more present as a student progresses asynchronously through the content. So when we find a good medium or a good balance of all three of those areas is when we find optimal educational experience for online learners. And so it's important not to view social presence and teaching presence as sort of an added plus to online learning, but that is a really core and essential requirement to good online learning. So we're kind of building off of that. And another area is in online engagement, something that professors are frequently asking us about and wanting to improve, getting students to really engage with the content. And in the 2010 work by Trowler, they said that participating in a learning community has been linked to substantial increases in engagement. So students find it easier to engage in a course in which they know people and they feel connected to people than in a course where they feel like a blank, face that's sort of lurking about the periphery of it. So it's important to connect and engage with them in a personal and community level, and then students will engage even more with the content as well. Student satisfaction is also increased as you seek to build community. There's an analysis by Swan in 2002 that discovered a significant relationship found between perceived interaction with other students and the students' satisfaction with their courses and their perceived learning from them. So as students interact with each other, they feel more satisfied with the course and they feel like they learned more. So that's another important element as to why this is critical. And then finally, the DSU online teaching best practices that have been kind of tooling for about a year now and working with Faculty Senate to put into policy. Several of these, as you can see from the list below, refer to teaching presence and the importance of teachers, doing things like interacting with students throughout the course and engaging learners throughout the class, responding in a timely manner and providing feedback on assignments, having opportunities for students to interact with and receive feedback from other students. So these are things that are being, decisions that are being made at our university of what we value most in online teaching. And this idea of rapport and community surfaces quite frequently actually in those standards. So that's another reason there. So let's talk now and move into tools. It's important to note that these are only tools and that the strategies and the way that you use them is really what's most important. But the idea here is that we're just going to kind of take a 360 look at the different tools that are out there, and so that you can kind of see and get some ideas of ways that you might utilize these tools. So starting with Canvas, we all know Canvas, and it's a very powerful tool. And I've told many professors before that you don't need anything but Canvas in order to achieve these different best practices, in order to build community and rapport. Canvas can do it all. It might not do it all as efficiently as some other tools, but everything that you need is there in that program, in that system. So what I'd like to do is just kind of throw some screenshots on here to show you some different ideas of ways to utilize Canvas and that can contribute to greater rapport and community with your students. So here's a screenshot of an announcement. And announcements are a great tool for keeping the class up to date. The announcements students receive through their notifications. They can also, if you change the settings on a course, appear at the top of your course so that as students log in, the announcements are the first thing that they see at the top. And then announcements are just like any other rich content editor in your course, in the sense that you can add anything. So in this case, a video. This one was a video that I shared with the students, kind of an update and what to expect for the coming week. And then I also like to include humor. I feel like it helps the students get to know me. So I usually will kind of do a little joke or some funny story at the end of my video announcement. And so just kind of wrap all that together and present it in that way. Obviously, you can also type it out as text or however you want to present that. But the announcement tool is an important feature, and adding in video, we'll discuss later on, is a really great strategy to help make that connection with your students, even informally like that, not necessarily delivering lectures and stuff. On the other hand, here's like an instructional page in the course. And so there's a block of text and then as well an instructional video. So this is something that I think a lot of you probably already do, and I encourage you to keep doing that. Provide students with instructional content from the horse's mouth, so to speak, not always just saying, hey, go read this, go read that. Actually talk to you about it. I'm going to work with you. Students have told me that when they hear from their professor, they feel like they're really getting that value from the course versus the professor just saying, read this chapter and then take this quiz. They want to hear the instruction from you, and that helps build that rapport with them. Another cool feature you may or may not have known about on pages in Canvas, you can change a setting to where students are able to edit pages. So you could create a page that could essentially become like a wiki page where anybody can go in there and add content to it. And so it could become a collection of links or different write-ups that the students are doing. The discussion tool is not the only tool where students can edit and kind of collaborate within Canvas. So that's a setting that you might try playing with, and then tell students, your assignment is to go into this page and add your 2 cents or contribute somehow to the content of this page. Here's a cool feature in the gradebook. You can go into the gradebook, and at the top of every column, there's an option called Message Students Who. And this is a great intervention tool that a lot of students, in my experience, have really appreciated, because I'll reach out to them and say, message students who haven't submitted this yet. And I just send them a quick note that says, hey, I noticed that the due date passed and you weren't able to submit it. You need any help? Got any questions? What can I do for you? And like 9 times out of 10, they'll respond to me, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, da 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 da. And they'll like tell me about what's going on. And that gives me an opportunity to interact with them on that level. It shows them that I'm watching, that I'm there, that I care, And so that's another great strategy that I encourage you to do, especially maybe with more like high stakes assignments and things like that. You can also reach out to students who scored below a certain level. So if you have, something out of 100, you could say anyone that scored less than 80, I want to contact them and talk to them and maybe set something up where I can, coach them a little more, intervene with them. So that's a powerful tool where you can message instead of a blast to your entire class. You can target specific, students that performed a certain way on an assignment from the gradebook. Another great feedback tool that you can do to save you some time and provide sort of auto feedback is if you create rubrics in your assignments, then first of all, it helps the students understand what the expectations are. But then also when you go in the speed grader, you can click these boxes and students can see exactly where they lost points. I found myself before marking students down and then having to rationalize, in the comments, here's why you lost all the points, da 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 da. But now if I have the rubric is able to do that and say that you forgot this part, you missed this part, and that's why you lost the points. And all I have to do is click on the boxes and give them that level of feedback. In some situations that might be sufficient, but in others you might want to leave more detailed comments. And this is, in my opinion, one of the most important tools that if you're not using a lot, I really encourage you to do it. The comments on an assignment when students submit things, not just for students that miss stuff, but also to praise students who did things well. They really appreciate that recognition. They really love to know that you actually read through what they wrote and that you didn't just see, yeah, it looks good to me, 20 out of 20, but that you really looked at it and you took a moment to process it and then you took a moment to type this out. That really goes a long way with students. And another, throwing in kind of a multimedia thing here, the comments section in Canvas allows you to do a video or an audio comment. And there's an article that I read that showed if you leave audio comments, in other words, you read their thing, you give them a score, and then you just click record, start talking through it, you tend to leave about 7 times as much feedback if you talk it through than just typing it. And that's just even more for the students to be able to hear from you and hear your voice. So it's got a great component there, a more personal touch as well. We all know that you can use the messaging in Canvas to reach out to students directly or to the entire class. And again, you can see the little buttons at the bottom. You can attach files or images or multimedia. This is also available in the app. And if you haven't downloaded the Canvas Teacher app, you need to do that right away. It's helpful to notify you of when students just pinged you and sent you a message, or if you have other notifications set. Sometimes our phones are the quickest way to us. So installing that and then using that as well, I think is a great tool. Okay, and then just a couple more features here. The first is groups. In the People tab in Canvas, you can select to create groups, and then those groups can be used in discussions. So I've heard many times from students that they log into a discussion and there's just this endless feed of like 30 other students and the things that they posted. And to digest all that is really a tall order. And then what they end up doing is kind of looking at the first 1 or 2, responding to those and then leaving. And the people at the end never get anybody interacting with them or reading their stuff or whatever. You can create groups in Canvas to where a student is a member in a group of 5, 6, 7, 8 other students. And when they go into the discussion, they just see those 5 students. And now all of a sudden it's easy to look through and see what the other people in your group are saying, to respond to them. And you're more likely to have sort of a conversation if that's what you're using the tool for, to get some back and forth to really discuss in a more manageable way for students. So if you haven't set up groups before, that's another area I'd really encourage you to check out, where students can have a more manageable experience working with each other in discussions and stuff. And then finally, here's just a screenshot of what that might look like. This is one of the discussions where there was some back and forth, where there was this group of, I think, seven students. And so you can see as they respond to each other, Canvas indents those responses, and they're asking each other questions and doing things like that. So the discussion tool, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, is obviously another great tool for building community and getting students to interact with each other. All right. The next one, Zoom. Zoom is something that now has been integrated into our university, so you all have access to it. And I know that you all, obviously, you're on a Zoom call right now. This is kind of an inception moment here, I guess. But here's something that you may or may not know you get for free with your Zoom account. If you download and install the Zoom desktop client or app on your phone, there's a chat feature. And this is what it looks like when you load up the Zoom platform. You can click on chat, and then you can send instant messaging to anybody else on campus, including students. So you can load up a new chat. You type in the to field here, then start typing the name of who you want, and it's going to show you all the different options that are there. We use this a lot in our office to send quick messages to our colleagues, but this also has application in teaching where you could set up a chat channel with a group of students in your class or all the students in your class, and they can use this, which is a little bit more contemporary, I guess, of what students are used to as far as like group text messaging and other social media apps where it's kind of this instant back and forth compared to a discussion tool in Canvas that might feel a little more clunky and formal to them. This is very informal. It's very fast and easy, a great way to send out, information and things like that. So you could set it up with one-on-one with a student if they wanted to have sort of a direct avenue of channel of communication with you. Or like I said, a group of students, you could set it up within your department. The way that we've done here, you can see the names of different people that I have different chat channels with. And then when you send those chats, it kind of looks like this, where you can send out links and type in the text. You can send images and files and things like that and respond to each other. And it just sort of has like that instant messenger feel where students would be able to kind of quickly communicate with you, send you a quick message or whatever. So feel free to look into Zoom chat and how that might be useful for you. And this last one here is just to show that when you do a Zoom presentation, you can record it and use that recording as video files within your course if you like to use it in that way. So that's another application of that tool. Kaltura and My Media, as it's called in Canvas, is another great tool that you can use to manage all of your video content. Again, recording videos and placing videos either informally through announcements or things like that, or as lectures or instructional content, is an important way to build rapport with students. And if you use it through My Media versus just a simple file upload or a YouTube upload, in My Media, it has a few other options for you. So comments, students can actually comment and have sort of a little mini discussion related to your video. Caption and Enrich allows students, or allows you to request free auto-generated captions that helps improve the accessibility. And then the analytics feature is really cool because what that does is it'll, for any one of your videos, you can click on the analytics tool and it will show you the names of the students, who's watched it, how long did they watch it for. So you can see here the student on the top row watched it twice and they completed it 100% on that far right column. This other student watched it once and they dropped off at 49%. So they watched it halfway through. They must not have thought my jokes were very funny, so they stopped watching. Anyway, that's another cool feature that you can see, and that can help you kind of understand how students, that gives you some feedback to how students are processing the different videos and stuff that you do. Okay, Dmail and Google Apps. This is something, again, that university-wide, we all have this. Every faculty and staff has this, every student has this. So we can utilize this in ways that you can, again, build community and rapport. Students are creating Google Docs, then, and they send you a link or they add you individually to be able to suggest or leave comments. Then you can comment here on specific parts of their essay or write up their report. And in the margins, you can leave those comments. And then students can respond to those comments. And those responses will be emailed, notified to you. This student responded to this comment. And then you can go back and you can essentially have a conversation with the students in the margins of their actual work, where they go and make edits and revisions and things of that nature. And then eventually, submit it through Canvas where you can give it a score. Canvas does allow you to annotate submissions, but if you've used that before, you'll probably notice that it's not the greatest tool, and sometimes students don't even look at it. They might miss that. So Google Docs could be a great opportunity for you to coach students in their writing and stuff. And the other cool thing, it can be embedded within Canvas. So if you wanted, you could have like a shared paper or something like that, and the students could all kind of collaborate on one Google document, leaving comments and things of that nature, and then embed that on a page in Canvas. So there's a lot of applications for that. And then finally, external tools. This is really like endless. I mean, there are so many tools out there, it's just ridiculous. And there's nothing stopping you from finding some of these external tools and signing up for a free version or paying if you really want to, and using them in your online teaching. So I'm just gonna highlight 3 of them really quickly. Flipgrid and Padlet and Hypothesis. Flipgrid, you may have heard of before as like a video discussion tool. And so students can upload their response to your prompt as a video, and then they can, give a heart to like, and they can give a comment and record a video reply and that type of thing. And a lot of students really appreciate this because now it gives that human touch to the discussion where they can see your face and hear your voice and not just be reading text all the time. And so again, Flipgrid can also be embedded. If you create a Flipgrid board, you can embed that on a page in Canvas if you wanted to, as you can see from this screenshot here. So it lays it out in sort of this grid where students can see that, and then it would be up to you to go and assign points if you are assigning points for that type of thing. Padlet is like an online bulletin board. That's the best way I can describe it. And students can kind of post things, and it's very visual, a very collaborative workspace that they can use. Padlet has a free version, but it limits you to 3 boards, unfortunately. Flipgrid, by the way, is free though for you to use. As far as I know, unlimited free. So, and then the last is Hypothesis, and Hypothesis is like a shared annotation software. So students can go to any web page on the internet, and then they load up Hypothesis, and in the margin, they can type their own comments. So you can see on this page, there's some of these highlights with the red stars. Then those are written up, and this is just a zoomed in look. So then you can make comments and respond to each other. And as students are reading content, then they can be seeing what other students and their professor are thinking during the reading rather than just after the reading with summaries and things like that. Hypothesis allows you to sort of look at comments throughout the actual website or article or whatever. So that's another really cool tool that's free to use.
Ethan?
So, oh, yes, Diana.
Right now, we can't use Hypothesis with Canvas. We have one professor that's made a deal with Hypothesis that's been able to integrate it there, but we don't have it for everybody.
Diana, that professor is me. I was just typing something into the chat. So Canvas, Hypothesis will be available on Canvas this fall. So if anybody is interested in that, just send me an email and I'll make sure to send you pesky emails to remind you about it. And I should probably talk with you, Diana, more about this and make sure you get CTL gets the word out too. So
yeah,
perfect.
Let us know and we can even do a training on it so that we can help people. But yeah, the last time I talked to Scott and Jared, they had said that right now we only had the one. So I'm glad that they were able to get it for everybody.
yeah, so we're gonna start. I think the trial starts in July, so I'll start sending out emails then. So
Cool. Thank you for clarifying that, Diana and Lauren. Appreciate that. Okay, so I know this looks overwhelming, right? I mean, oh my gosh, there's so many tools. It's just crazy, but I really want to emphasize these are only tools, and it's up to you to determine what works well for you and for your students. And then, you know, these can equip you to do some of these strategies that we're going to discuss next to really build that community with students, even in an online space. So, you know, it might not be as natural, might not come as natural as when you're in a classroom and you're talking with students and things like that, but that doesn't mean it's not impossible. So the tools are there, you know, it's possible. And what you need to do is just find out what works for you and then go for it. So I'm just going to review a few of my top strategies, and then I'm going to turn the time to Nancy to share some of her thoughts and approaches. So this is, to me, the number one strategy when it comes to building community and rapport with students online is to communicate consistently and quickly. So that's, you know, everything, essentially every tool that I just shared with you is all about communication, and that's really all it is. It's just communicating with them through different avenues in ways that you build that teaching presence, and then providing opportunities and designing your course in a way that students have opportunities as well to communicate with each other. So nobody wants to be in a silo, you know, and that's the whole key. So, but when you do it consistently and students know what to expect, oh yeah, I always get an announcement on this day. I know what to look for, you know. Oh, and they always respond back on my assignments. So I know after I turn in an assignment and I see the grade, I want to go and look at that grade because I know there's going to be feedback with it. Not just, oh, I see I got a grade. Okay, that's great. So, you know, when it's consistent, then they know that they want to look for that and they look forward to it or whatever. And then quickly, that is just important, especially when they reach out with questions and stuff like that. You want to respond promptly. The feedback element, as you know, much as you can, that's really where I think a lot of the teaching happens in online learning, is that you coach students and respond to the work that they're doing. All right. So instead of like the instructional pieces that you designed beforehand, those are important. But you know, actually responding to specific things in their learning process is really important. And as an online teacher, I think this is actually an area that you can do almost better than in certain classroom settings, because in certain classroom settings, students may be able to sort of just kind of fly under the radar, and you don't always know what they're thinking or what they're, you know, how they're processing the information. Whereas in online, yeah, it might be kind of annoying that's to students like, oh, I have to submit every little thing. I have to type up every little thing. But now as a teacher, you get to see every little thing, you know, and you can respond to that and coach them and provide feedback along the way. So, of course, incorporate video communication whenever possible. I've mentioned that a few times. Rethinking discussions. This could be a whole training on its own, and this is something I really love, and I've played with a lot in Canvas, so I'm not even going to open that can of worms. But just so you know, I'll boil it down to this. There are ways to do discussions besides read this, write a response, and reply to 2 people by Sunday. There's more ways than that, just so you know. In fact, there's probably a countless number of ways. And I'd love, again, at another training to share some of those, or maybe we'll put it up on our website or something like that. But Get creative with your discussions, and students, you'll find, will respond accordingly. So finally, outline a plan for how you're going to interact. Remember, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So before your semester, decide, here's when I'm going to send announcements. Here's how I'm going to respond to this. Here's how I'm going to give feedback, and yada, yada, and make that a plan, and then communicate that plan to students. You'll find that that helps you kind of keep yourself accountable. If you say, I'm going to send you an announcement every Monday, and you tell them that, then, you're going to feel like, hey, I better, I can't just let that slack. So communicating that plan. And then last of all, just kind of seeking feedback from them. How am I doing? Check in every now and then. How's my driving? I find that really helpful. Students are very willing, actually, to communicate that with you and share either, things that they appreciate that you're doing and they want you to continue, or things that they're like, this is confusing, or this isn't really working for me. So don't ever hesitate to send out a survey or send out, an email or something, and just ask students to give you some feedback as well. That will build that rapport and that trust as a community online also. Okay, so I was shooting for 1:30 and I just about got there, Nancy. So we're going to proceed now, and Nancy is going to share with you some of her experience and tips for teaching online.
Ethan, before you pass it to Nancy, sorry, Nancy, to interrupt. Yeah. We have a comment in the chat, and one of them is from me. Definitely just saying how our students in student panels, especially these online learners, they appreciate that communication. That's one of the challenges they indicate, is that the instructors often take too long to respond, if they respond at all. So they really appreciate that meaningful and timely feedback. Jana mentioned in the chat that she would love other ideas for discussions. Students also have mentioned that they hate the discussions, too many discussions, and the forced discussions where it's, post your original one and respond to two classmates. That we're getting a lot of negative feedback from students about that. So Jana's saying she'd love additional ideas about those discussions.
Jana, you and I should connect one-on-one, and we'll discuss some of those. And I'll just say this, that I've heard that so many times. Students hate discussion, students hate discussion, student hates discussion. I used to think I hated spinach because the only way I'd ever had it was creamed. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the most disgusting thing on earth. And then I found out spinach is actually a leafy green, and I like spinach now. I have it on salads and sandwiches and things like that. So anyway, if students have only ever experienced discussions that were, just a bad experience, then and they haven't had a chance to try some of these other ways and things, then yeah, I can understand that. I think that's a pretty natural reaction. So finding ways to spice it up is important. And Jen, I'd love to connect with you later and share some of those.
Can I just share one thing on discussions? This is
Sure.
Something that I've been seeing at some of the conferences I've been going to. And to add a little bit of more, the Bloom's taxonomy, I talked about this yesterday, but bringing Bloom's taxonomy into your discussions. So have them hashtag understanding, hashtag apply, and so that they're actually thinking past just that surface response to things, to apply them to those Bloom's taxonomy verbs. And it kind of brings a little different feel to their discussions as well, when you bring those in and make them start thinking in those terms of how they're applying to the prompt at that point. Cool. So that I just thought I'd share that real quick.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so just on that last question there, I really like Google Forms, which is just part of the Google Suite. Okay, though. Almost 2 years ago, I started an online MA program at Luther Seminary, which has a long history of online instruction. And I graduated from my undergraduate program in 2002, and with my PhD in 2007, and online learning wasn't ever available to me in my programs. I only ever had face-to-face classes, and some were good and some were terrible. And I learned a lot about teaching in a face-to-face setting by being a student, as most of us do, and trying to replicate the best of what I experienced and avoiding the worst. Being an online student these last few years has helped me understand more about what it is like to take online classes. And it sounds like so many of us here have taken online classes, which is good to hear. The campus of my seminary is in St. Paul, Minnesota, so it isn't like I can attend in person sometimes or for special events. I've mostly had very good experiences, and I've taken some of what I've learned and applied it back to my classes. I've also had a bad experience with one class and learned from that experience also. And I want to share some of the best and worst of what I have encountered as an online student. And first, I want to share a little bit about my worst class. The professor never created an intro video to introduce himself to the class or to give a big, broad overview of course material. The professor never showed his face in the videos, which were all hour-long presentations in voice over slides format. The first several videos had terrible, terrible sound quality, but the professor never made an effort to fix them. The professor was very slow to respond to emails, often taking a week or more. And after the first time or two, I felt like it wasn't worth the effort of getting my questions answered and gave up trying to contact this person. This professor did not hold Zoom office hours, or if they did, they were never communicated. And even though this professor taught classes I was interested in taking, I knew that it was not a good use of my time to continue taking classes from this person, because there just wasn't a lot of learning, engagement, or community happening in that class compared with my other classes. And even though I was interested in this professor's course content, my frustration with a lack of trust and community resulted in a lower investment of my time and effort. Most of my classes haven't been anything like this. In my favorite classes that I've taken, the professors have created shorter videos that also show their faces. And some of them are voiceover slides, but they try to keep these short or make these a series of shorter videos. My favorite professors all respond to weekday emails within 24 hours. And my favorite professors were involved in the class through their continual communication with students through messages and video. My favorite professors responded to class discussion boards by making videos that highlighted important comments and questions and made points of clarification. These videos in particular showed me that my professors were invested in the course content and in class discussions, and that made it easier for me to begin to invest in classes that I didn't think I was interested in. I put off taking a few classes because I was intimidated by the content, but the trust and community that professors fostered helped me overcome my apprehension. From these good examples, I learned that my professors did not create a sense of community in an online classroom by accident. They had to be intentional and thoughtful about it, and I could see that these efforts really paid off. Ethan, can you advance the slide? One of the connection and community building strategies that I prioritize in my online classes is very simple. It's prompt email replies and to emails and in Canvas messaging. I'm sure that we all do this, but for myself, I've made it a number one priority. If a student sends me a question Monday through Friday between 9 and 5, I try to respond as soon as I am alerted to the message. I usually get an especially high volume of messages during the first week or two of class, and this is an especially important time for me to set the precedent that I will respond to student questions quickly. If I want to communicate to students through the speed of responses, I want to communicate to students through the speed of my responses that I am present to their learning. Yet sometimes a string of meetings gets in the way of timely responses. But if I set a good pattern at the beginning of the semester, students will reach out more to get their questions answered because they have confidence that I will reply as soon as I can. And this creates trust. It is not my experience that this practice sets unreasonable expectations or creates overly demanding students. This foundation of trust is something that communicates to students that I am invested in their learning, and for me, is one of the foundations of community building in my online classes. If students learn to trust me, that I am working for their good, I think that creates mutual trust and responsiveness with course content and assignments. Community building is a relational activity, and the foundation of most relationships is trust. Ethan, can you advance the slides? Okay. So since January 2018, I have made many videos for my online classes, and at my last count, just a few shy of 600. Most of these are short overview videos, letting my class know what we are doing in a given week or module and emphasizing things that they should pay particular attention to. And most of my videos show my face. And when I have graded the assignments for a given week, I leave individual feedback in Canvas, but I also make a short video to give more generalized feedback to the whole class and then send these videos to students in a Canvas message. I also do a lot of demonstrations of course materials and videos. I may respond to a student question by recording a screencast to walk them through their issue. I do not sit down and give a long lecture in a video. Nobody wants to listen to that. I wouldn't want to watch a video like that, and I'm sure my students wouldn't either. And so when I first started making these videos, they were terrible. The video and sound quality were poor, and I didn't have a tripod, and I often just held my phone up with my hand to take the videos. I wasn't sure how to be my best teaching self on camera. And Ethan, can you play a few seconds of a bad video?
I'll try it. We'll see if the sound comes through or not.
I'm not sure that it is.
Hmm.
Okay, it's okay. It's okay. Just trust me that it's terrible. But I've had a lot of practice. Can you advance the slide?
By the way, Nancy, even a bad video, I think, is helpful for students.
Oh, totally, totally. My first 200 or so videos, I don't think were great, but I figured things out and they got better. And here are some of the things that I have learned in that first year of making a lot of videos. Use a tripod. Even a cheap one with a phone mount will make a lot of difference. Try to pick a decent location for your videos. I don't use a ring light, but I do try to use natural light to make my video, and by making my videos next to a large window, which is where I'm at in my home right now. Make sure that you're recording in a quiet space with minimal background noise. My phone takes high quality video and audio, but if the audio on your phone or webcam is poor, even a $15 condenser microphone from Amazon will likely clean up the audio. Test the equipment you have by making a demo video and then watch it on YouTube. And if it sounds terrible to you, it sounds terrible to your students. Make sure that you turn on the auto captions on YouTube if you're using unlisted YouTube videos for your classes. If you have time, edit the transcript and pay particular attention to special vocabulary that is key to understanding your topic. Lots of people watch videos in silence because they watch them in the public or quiet space, like in the library. Upload your videos in high definition or HD to YouTube. Change your privacy settings so that your teaching videos are set to unlisted, which will mean that only people with a link can view them. Keep them short, ideally 3 to 5 minutes. Break up longer explanations into a series of shorter videos. Consider adding an informational card at the beginning or end of your video. You can make attractive cards in Canva, which is a free design tool. And if you feel self-conscious about recording a video of yourself, keeping your videos short and concise may help you grow your confidence, and your students will thank you. When I'm watching videos for classes that I'm taking, they can all feel a bit slow at times, and I typically counter this by listening to them at twice the normal speed. Your students are probably doing the same. Show up like a person who knows what they are doing and make sure that the camera is at your eye level when you are recording. You might be an amateur videographer, but try not to make it too obvious. And at the same time, don't get stuck on perfecting every video. This isn't a good use of your time. Instead, understand that you will get better with practice, and this will likely start to feel easier with time. I delete and start over only 5% or less of my videos, and I try to really get what I need in a single take. I sometimes have Post-it notes stuck on or near the camera to remind me of the things I need to cover in the video. Make screencasts that also capture your face by recording a video in Zoom and using the screen share feature. Having the professor be physically visible while covering difficult content has been helpful to me as a student. If you create trust with your students, they will see you as a useful guide in their learning, I think. Okay, I'm turning the time back over to Ethan. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Man, there's a lot to unpack there. So I'm glad we're recording this and we can go back and review a lot of these great tips and things that you've shared with us. So thank you. And I know that Nancy is seeing great results from the things that she's doing with her online students. So I wanted to share a few of their voices. These are quotes taken from some of the surveys, responses that we've received in different courses that we've worked with faculty in developing. And when we pilot them, we like to get student input. And so I just took a few of those noteworthy ones and included them in here. And so, you know, the students love to see the professor, and this one here at the top, love to hear your enthusiasm and insight. This professor provides excellent feedback even on our posts on the discussion board. So, you know, there's nothing holding you back from participating and reading in the discussion board. If you don't want to influence the discussion too much, you can give that feedback, like Nancy said, as sort of a video summary or response to the entire class, or maybe in the assignment comments section when you're grading it. So I thought that was great as well. Another student said, never liked an online class as much as this one. It's because of the professor's hard work and effort on our behalf. So as the designers working with these professors, we're like, oh man, what about the design? Wasn't the design great? No, they don't care about that. A great teacher can take a course that's, you know, mediocre in design and make it the best experience of a student's life. And likewise, a really lousy online teacher could take the most beautiful online course and ruin it for students. So it really comes down to the teacher and the way that they deliver the course and create that presence in online learning. They view teachers as great when they really connect with students. They know, I love how Nancy said they're confident and they anticipate that if I send something to my professor, I'm going to get something back. And so now, you know, when you get that, the behaviorist in us says, well, there's this stimulus and response. So now the students know that they can get that feedback when they need it. So they feel confident in that. That helps a lot. And then finally, like the importance of weekly updates, keeping students on track. For a lot of students, that's really helpful. For some, you know, they probably don't need that. And not every student reads your announcements and not every student watches your videos. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that you stop doing those things, because there are plenty of students in your courses that will appreciate and benefit from that. So just as a final reminder, our outcome today was to build community and rapport with online students by implementing best practices that increase teaching and social presence in order to improve the online course experience for students at DSU. I hope that this has been helpful for you. I'm gonna try and launch that other poll that asks about the training. So it should be showing you a question now. How helpful was this training in preparing you to build community and rapport with online students? We'd love to see that. It's anonymous as well, so don't feel bashful here. And I hope that if there are further questions that we can discuss here on the next slide as a whole group, but if you'd like to meet one-on-one, I'll also have the information for the learning designers in our office who are ready and willing to consult with any faculty, full-time, part-time, and work with you and provide ideas and training, further training, one-on-one training in any of these areas that we've covered today. So I appreciate your—
As well as CTL.
As well as CTL for non-online classes, that's correct, yes. So if you do have questions now, feel free to unmute or type them in the chat and we'd love to talk about it. If you don't have questions, then I have questions for you. So keep that in mind. Anything that you guys would like to know more about or ask about?
I do. I'm getting one private question here. Someone's just asking about my mic because it sounds really clear. And I do use a Blue Yeti mic, which is kind of a fancier mic, but I do so much of this work that it is worth it to me. But I've also had really good success, as I said, with like a $15 Amazon condenser mic, like a little clip-on mic. So these things make a difference.
Very cool, yeah. I should invest in something like that. I'm just using this little pinhole thing on my laptop and I'm sure it shows. So thank you. Great question. Other questions? Hey, this is your last chance or I'm gonna start grilling you guys. Jordan, I know you've got a question for me.
Where'd you get that tie? No,
Versus- Thank you. Oh, thank you so much for noticing. Yes, it's a beautiful tie. This is good for my wife.
a question I might ask is how can you show students in like updates, for example, that you care about their learning and that kind of thing? Like, do you just say, this is what's due this week? Do you say, I hope that you aren't overwhelmed with what you have going on this week? Or like, what's the best kind of approach to take it with Canvas updates in particular?
That's a great question. Nancy, what kind of things do you cover in those updates?
Yeah, so I have a couple of different kinds of updates. I have my weekly overview videos that I tend to make in advance. But after I grade like the week's assignments, I will then respond to in a video to students. So I'll like grade all the assignments and make a video to respond. And I will just try to highlight things that are going well, in addition to highlighting areas that maybe everybody needs to be concerned with. And if like last spring when the pandemic hit, a lot of my response videos were trying to acknowledge that I knew that students were going through hard things and trying to communicate I was going through hard things and yet we are still here. And you know, I think that there are a lot of ways when I get to do that. When students send me a message and they're describing something that has gone wrong in their life, I try to start my response by acknowledging what they have told me. And I think that, you know, that in a couple of situations, I've had students come back and respond and say like, thank you for acknowledging the thing that was going wrong in my life, as opposed to only the memo of when their late assignment would be submitted. And so, you know, I think that, you know, being human and acknowledging people's humanity, dignity, and life circumstances, even at a distance, makes a difference to students who may often feel like the university, or especially online learning, is very transactional. And so, but I think when we can transition and say like, you know, you just had COVID, of course you're having a difficult time, you know, like, you know, and acknowledge the difficulty of people's lives, then, you know, I think that lets students know that we care. And these are not hard things to do. These are not hard things to do, but in a more distant setting, instead of face-to-face, we may forget to do them.
Great point. Thank you, Nancy. Awesome. Okay, any other questions? Was there anything new to you here, new tools that you'd like to try out, or maybe other ideas of things that you've done that you could share with the group here before we close?
I'll share that this is my second semester of teaching the same online course, and I made it a really big point this semester to track participation and track students that maybe missed a week in discussions or maybe did something. And each time I've reached out, the students have been so appreciative that I cared enough to reach out, and seemed really surprised that I was checking in on them, which made me kind of wonder if nobody else has been checking in on them, because it was such a little thing to shoot them an email and say, hey, I noticed you missed this week's assignment, or hey, I noticed you haven't been logging in. And most of the time it's because they've been sick, and unfortunately they don't seem to tell us when they're sick. So a few of mine have missed like a few weeks, and I didn't get a response for a few weeks, and I don't know what's going on with the other courses, but you know, it got to the point where they were failing and they're like, okay, I'm back, I'm feeling better, and we were able to work something out. So that's something that I've noticed has been really positive, and I want to make sure I keep doing that.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that as well, Jana, that when you react and respond and work with them in that way, or even when you send out, like I said, kind of an intervention, hey, I noticed that you haven't been X, Y, or Z, they're almost taken aback, like, oh my gosh, like,
yeah,
you noticed that? You really, you know. So yeah, I agree. And I think that goes a long way, that the students, as I was asking, you know, how do you express that care and concern over the internet? It's those little things that maybe you think they're so little that, you know, you don't need to do them or whatever. Like Nancy said, maybe we just forget, you know. I'd love to remember to do all these things, but that's great. I'm glad that you're paying close attention to their participation and then working with them and trying to help them along if they need help. So
I forget that they're freshmen and they don't know to let us know things. Like, I just think as
Yeah.
adults, when we're sick, we're going to let people know, hey, even if you're
That's
really
right.
sick, hey, I'm just out of it right now. And they don't think to do that. And so it's kind
Right.
of a refresher to me, like you have to teach them how to do these things at the college level.
Good point. And especially in an online class, it might be maybe for some their very first experience doing online. And so, you know, whereas we would never imagine missing a deadline and not submitting an explanation or something, to, you know,
Yeah.
to your professor or your employer, that, yeah, maybe the students haven't learned that skill yet. And being an online student, being a successful online student does sort of require a different skill set, you know, than being a successful student in the classroom. And so as an online teacher, it's important to, you know, point those things out if you need to for students that maybe are struggling and letting things slip a little bit. So thank you. And then Rick also said in the chat that he'd like to add videos to announcements and responses in the future. And I think that's great. So I'm happy to hear that. And I think that your students will really love to see and hear you more as well. So that's awesome. Anyway, Terry has also posted in here, so I'll just turn your attention to that the next training for online teaching will be Friday, May 14th at 1 o'clock. And our very own Jordan Ellsworth will be facilitating that session to discuss increasing student engagement and participation in online courses. So May 14th, Friday, May 14th at 1 o'clock, if you want to pencil that in, we'd love to have you there as well. So Terry, anything else that you'd like to share before we close here?
Well, the provost mentioned a couple months ago that the best kept secret on campus is DSU Online Learning Designers, the learning design team. And I would include a CTL learning designer as well. The learning design team is here to serve faculty and to help you brainstorm ideas of how you might build community in your online courses or how you might increase student engagement. So I put a link to the chat so you can connect to learning designers anytime. I know this might be a busy time for you, but you have access to the best kept secret on campus to help you improve your online teaching and your online course design. So definitely take advantage of that. Any other questions, any other last comments, burning suggestions or questions, compliments, complaints? Well, thank you so much, Ethan and Nancy, for sharing. And did I hear someone comment?
I was just going to say, I hope to see you all at the county fair tonight. They've got boxing matches going on. It's the only sanctioned boxing in Washington County all year. So come on out and we'll go check it. Hope to see you there.
And I think one of our own student workers is singing the national anthem at the boxing event. So thank you so much for joining us on a Friday afternoon. And Ethan and Nancy, again, thank you so much. And we'll go ahead and end the recording and maybe have Ethan and Nancy stay afterwards. If anyone has any additional questions, feel free to ask. Thank you so much.
Thank you.